Lindsay, thank you so much for being here with me today. I know it's been a wild ride over the last few months, and I know you in particular, you're not done yet. So we're going to be going through like what has your transformation been so far? And so I really want to ask you some really pointed questions just so that whoever watches this can get a feel for what it is to work with me, what you have done, the progress you have made, and what your hopes are for, working with me further. So my first question for you is when you first started working with me, what was like the thing that kept you up at night? What was the biggest challenge, okay, in your relationship? And how has that specific area shifted for you so far?
Yes, there's probably a couple of different things that were actually keeping me up at night. And yeah, it mainly all revolved around just me and my husband and some of that. But mainly that, we had tried different kinds of therapy. We tried individual stuff. We had tried like couples counseling, and we might have gotten better for a time, but we always ended up back in the same spot. And it was getting tired of that. I was getting tired of going back to square one or even square zero sometimes. Um, and basically feeling like all of the progress that we had made just like slipped through our fingers. And so when I first started working with you or even considering working with you, the thing that really got to me was, and we've talked about this before, was that a lot of things that were in my social media at the time were very negative thinking. It was all about everything that I do that he doesn't do, and it was creating a lot of resentment. And at the time, I had a lot of that towards him. And so um, just feeling like I had to handle everything, that he wasn't doing anything, and that every single time that I tried to ask him to do something, he would always end up into a fight. And I was just to the point where I was like, I love him, I do. I don't want our relationship to end, but I don't know if I see another way forward right now. And there were lots of different factors in there. There was a me and him factor, there was a him and the kids factor, and stuff like that. But the thing that really piqued my interest in working with you was that instead of saying, look at all these things that he's not doing, you flipped it on its head. You were like, well, what can you do different? And I was sitting there and I was like, well, I don't know. And with my son being special needs, and going through that whole kind of like process with him, what I told a lot of people was I've changed how I interact with my kid so that I get a better result from him and his actions. And then I was sitting there going, well, if I can do that with my kid, why can't I do it with my husband? And then my husband's a programmer. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, if I'm putting it in his terminology, it's you have to give a different input in order to get a different output. And so if I'm doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, literally, I'm insane. And so I was like, well, what can I do different? And so instead of just thinking everything is his fault, thinking, okay, what can I do different? What can I do that will change how he acts? Instead of just assuming that everything is his fault, what if I came at it different? And I got a different response. And so it was a lot of that curiosity in just that initial question of like, well, what can you be doing differently? And I was like, well, but I want to figure it out because I want to stay married. And everything else hasn't been working, so let's give this a shot too. And so that's initially like how it all got started. I think it's so far.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Yeah, and I have seen that growth. I have seen those shifts that you have taken, not just like what you've been saying, but also like how you've been showing up. Can you talk to that aspect? Because I feel like that one has been like you're really good at shifting your language. Okay, that one seems to be very easy for you. the energy with which you bring to these situations is the piece that has been a little bit trickier to adjust in these situations. But I notice that it has shifted for you. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so a lot of it, again, is just, it's one or two little words you kind of pointed out to me where instead of saying one word, say a different word. And it's just kind of had an entire shift of everything. And it just snowballed on top of each other. And so, like you're talking about like the narrative gap and stuff like that. It's like, is that what happened, or is that what you think happened, or what you feel happened? And so it's I'm trying to train myself now and saying, um, is this actually what happened, or is this my emotions taking over? And I'm trying to come at things in the more non-emotional way, because that's how my husband responds better. He shuts down with emotion. Love him to pieces. He's not good with emotion. He never has been. And I don't really think it's going to change all that much. Maybe a little bit, but not a whole bunch. And that was from his childhood and all that sort of stuff. But I have noticed that when I think about that in the conversations that I'm having with him, then we end up having more productive conversations. Um, like our whole like bill kind of situation. We had a long talk one night, and while this happened several years ago, what I said was, I didn't understand this is what you were going through at the time. How I interpreted it was this way, and I thought that I was helping. I realize now that I wasn't, and I should have been doing something different. I'm sorry. And while I can't go back and change the past, I can try to recognize where we are now and change what we do in the future. And that has helped with a lot of the built up frustration and resentment towards each other, was just letting that one thing go. Because again, it was kind of like that one catalyst that everything else snowballed on. And when we didn't have that anymore, everything else just kind of fell apart. So, not having to bring up the bills over and over and over again anymore has been a relief for both of us, I think. But when I just keep thinking, okay, just talk to him, tell him what your thought process was during that time, not saying that this is how it was, but this is how I feel that it was, and that's why I responded in a certain way, then it helps him figure it out a little bit easier too. And so making that distinction between it, um, I think has opened up both of our eyes to each other a little bit more.
I love that. Yeah. And that leads me into my next question. And you've already kind of hinted at this a little bit, but what has surprised you the most about the way that I approach the entire process of relationship repair compared to other relationship advice that you've gotten? And why are you choosing to continue to work with me?
Well, again, it was more of the way that you kind of said, well, what could you be doing differently? Because a lot of what I had been doing before was just, here's all the things he's doing wrong. Never really taking that mirror to myself and thinking, well, what could I be doing differently? But then you also see all of those, clips from different movies or whatever, where it's like a couples counseling session, and the therapist is like either like playing referee or whatever, but then they end up like choosing sides, and it pits them against each other, and it just like implodes from there. And I was really hesitant about something like that happening. But the way that you approached it with me is not here's everything you're doing wrong again. But it's a, what is he doing right? Or what could he be thinking? And just putting more of a positive spin on it rather than looking at all the negative. And I mean, just being in this world, we look at the negative and it's a lot easier to focus on all of it than it is the positive. It's very hard to think of all the positive things. And so your positive perspective, and not placing blame on one side or the other, but just opening up the conversation for the possibility of, well, they might be doing something that's not your way, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. And then again, it's like, they could say something about you, doesn't make it right, but you also have to be open to the possibility that it could be true. And so having that softer kind of approach and just being like, is it really, is it? Rather than just saying, yeah, he's right in there and you're wrong here. Like, it makes it a lot easier to accept that maybe I'm not perfect and I need to change things. And my way isn't always the way to do it. There's other ways to do it. Doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it different. And that's okay. And for someone who's as much a control freak as I am, that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. But you've been very patient with me in trying to work through all of that. And while I'm not where I want to be with that just yet, I'm hoping I can get a lot closer by the end of our session. So, but I mean, even just like, the dishes, like, do they have to be done in this order? Like, do the clean dishes have to be put away and then the dirty dishes put into the dishwasher and then, have the dirty dishes from dinner put into the, like, does it have to be in that order? It's like, no. Do I want it to be? Yes. But does it have to be? No. And so even just that little bit, helps me kind of just pull back a minute and be like, okay, what are all of the other options? Give him the benefit of the doubt. Still ask for what I want or what I need. And set, I don't want to say expectations, but partnership kind of responsibilities and stuff like that. Then it takes stress and pressure off of me because I'm not sitting there hovering over him going, is he going to do this? And it allows me a little bit more of that freedom too, so that I can think of something else and I don't have to be worried about it, about what he's not doing.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. You really have picked up on so much of like the meat of what we do here. And it's been a fantastic like set of weeks and you've gotten like we do so much. It's jam-packed. Every single week when we're together, you're just like, I'm dumping on you. Okay. And you just absorbed like a sponge. It's been fantastic to watch you learn. Now, in that regard, I don't know if that's just your personality or if it's the way that I'm talking to you about it. Can you speak to that? Like, is it a little bit of both? Like, what made it so easy to absorb as quickly as you have?
I think it's kind of a combination of how you approach it, but also is that I really want this to work. And so it's that kind of that saying is like, if you want it to happen, you'll make it happen kind of thing. Or, even if it's just like, athletes, it's like, if you want to be at that next level, you're going to have to practice. Like, you're going to have to push yourself to do it. Or if you want to learn a new language, you're going to have to spend time studying it. And so it's a mix of that desire to have a better relationship and putting that effort in to make sure my relationship is better. But the way that you approach it too, kind of, going back to what I said before, was just instead of placing blame somewhere or pointing out where everything is wrong, just opening up the possibility that something else might be right or something else might be also true. Um, it um, it doesn't come across as harsh as when someone says you need to make this change, because as soon as someone says that, you're going to get very defensive, which I know that that's exactly how I was too. As soon as someone says you're doing X, I'll be like, no, I'm not. And I would always try and prove them wrong. And so I haven't gotten that feeling from you. What I get is a much softer kind of landing space, like a cloud or a pillow kind of thing. It's like, I can plop onto it, but it doesn't mean I have to stay right there either. I can move around a little bit. And that makes it a lot easier to examine the possibility of change for yourself, because it's very hard to take ownership of things that you might be doing wrong or things that you could be doing better. And it's easier to put all the blame on somebody else. And so when you turn that back around and you're trying to say, what can I be doing better? What could I be doing differently? That's a hard pill to swallow. But you've made it easier to handle with your softer approach. And, some people need, a harder approach. Some people need a softer approach. And I think I've gotten a fairly good kind of mix. Like you said, okay, you need to stop thinking it this way. And I'm like, but I don't want to. Or kind of like what we were going over before was, that's a you thing and we need to get you out of that mindset. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to work on it. That's not where I want to be, and it's going to be hard, and I'm not looking forward to that because I know it's going to be uncomfortable. But I also know that my relationship is worth it, and the progress that I've seen so far leads me to want to keep going.
Yeah, I hear that 100%. And you're so close. You're so close.
It's also like one of those things where it's like, I hope I just don't like get like through to the end and then just like lose it completely kind of thing. Like, it's almost like I just want to like keep going, but I know I can't hold on to you for forever. So,
well, we'll talk about that later. Don't worry.
Okay, sounds good.
But what I've noticed here for you specifically is that the compound effect that we've talked about in the past, the compound effect, what happens is it's almost like you're flatlining or you're making just a tiny bit of progress right towards the beginning, and all of a sudden things go like whoop, and you're off to the races. But it almost feels like nothing's happening for a minute. And I'm not going to lie to you, that's not the norm when I have clients come through. Usually it's a steady upward trend. And for you, I'm noticing that you are compounding, which is fantastic to hear, because now it's almost like there is no down. Okay, like all you can do is go up, and quickly.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. No, and at first I agree generally. So like at first I felt like it was kind of like flatlining at first, and then I felt like I actually took like a step or two back.
Yep.
And that's when I was sitting there, like I sent you that message and I was like, I'm done. Like I am trying to make all these changes. He's not seeing it. We got into this other like huge fight, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't even know why I'm putting in this effort if he's not going to see it. And you called me out on it too. You're like, no, like this happens sometimes, but we're not going to let it stop us. And I was like, I don't like where we're at. It was a very uncomfortable like 2 or 3 weeks with him, but we made it through. And then after that, yes, that's when we started going back up. And I want to keep going back up. There's still a lot of things that I want to work on for me, but there's also a lot of things that like I want him to work on too. But I know that it's not one of those things where I can force that change on him. All I can do is change what I give him in order to try and get that other response from him. So if I want him to have a better relationship with our son, then instead of just saying, you need to have a better relationship with him, this is what you need to be doing, like I had been doing, or saying, here's all of the literature, here's all of the, all the podcasts and stuff like that. Like, instead of just giving him all of those things, it's leading a horse to water. Like, I have to make him think about it a little bit too. And it's, for me, that was a big shift, because I'm one of those people who's like, I've already done all the hard work. Here are the answers. Just do it. But when he doesn't do it, that's when I get frustrated. I'm like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I've already done it for you. Just follow the playbook. And he wasn't doing it. And so, but what I'm coming to realize is that, especially like the whole like men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of thing, is that it's a different playbook. It's a different language completely. And so my playbook isn't going to compute in his head. And so I have to help him figure out how to create his own playbook. And that's the hard part for me at the moment is when I'm sitting there thinking about it, I'm sitting there going, I know what works for me or what doesn't work for me, but helping him figure out what could work for him or what doesn't work for him is a lot harder, because I'm not in his head. And I can give a whole bunch of different, options and all that sort of stuff, but they could all fall flat. It's just because I don't speak that language. He needs something else, which I don't even know what it is. And so there are some times where I just feel like I'm stuck and I can't do anything. And I'm like, and I don't like being in that position. I really just want to be like the whole like matrix thing. Just like, here's the answers, just download them into your brain. Okay. But it's not working like that right now.
Yeah. And I know that we've talked about that in particular, that, we don't talk in the same language. We don't have the same language as men do. And so sometimes the help that you want to give him is simply sitting back and letting him figure it out. And I know that we've talked about that too, in particular, and how that has been a struggle, but has actually yielded results for you when you do step back. You may not like what happened, but the result was there regardless.
Right.
And that's super powerful as a lesson to learn, especially for women, is because we almost instinctively will want to give the answers and almost mother our partner, and it never works. Never. Not ever. And so when you discovered that, and that was early on, when you discovered that and you had to try to lean back,
it's very hard.
It was very hard, but
and I'm still even working on it here at the office too. But with him, it was a little bit easier, because I realized that I was already in that kind of situation and I didn't want to be there, and he didn't want us to be there either. And so both of us realizing that we were in a spot that we didn't want to be in made it easier to try and get out of it too. And so doing the hard part, especially keeping my mouth shut and not being so defensive on things, very, very, very hard to do. But when I started doing that, that's when we started seeing all the changes. And that then made it easier to do everything else. For example, over this long weekend, my car was trashed out, right? And so we were driving, I think it was Sunday or whatever, like we were coming back from SeaWorld, and he was like, oh, I have to go take your car and to go get the oil changed tomorrow or whatever. And I was like, okay. You know what I would really love to? So while you're out, I have a coupon for a car wash, and they'll do like the inside of the car and all that sort of stuff. While you're out already doing everything else, take the coupon, go do this. You'll have some time away from the kids. I'll get a clean car at the end of it. And he was like, okay. So he went and did it. Now my car is spotless. And I'm like, hallelujah. But not just that, but like he took like, I have like the WeatherTech mats on the inside of my car, right? And he took them out and used our pressure washer to like clean everything off. And he was sitting there like doing like the hard part of it, right? And I have this little like um, rotating scrubber kind of thing. And I was looking at it and I was like, I wonder if I could use this and make it easier for him. And I like tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, would this help? And he goes, no, not really. I was like, can I test it? And he was like, yeah, sure, knock yourself out. And so I did it for like 5 or 10 seconds. I realized it wasn't going to work. And I was like, okay, you were right. And I went back to it. And we actually talked about this last night. He was like, is there ever going to be a point where you're just going to believe me and trust what I say? And I said, I know I haven't been great at it. I am working on it. Um, but I will say, and I even gave that example, I said, even what you did for me earlier today, that you knew that you were right. And I was about 98% sure you were too. I just, I got a wild hair and I wanted to test it out. You let me test it out for a few seconds and then it proved that you were right. And so that's going to like, reinforce the, oh, maybe he actually knows what he's talking about kind of thing. And maybe I won't question him the next time. And then he starts going into the whole, well, I had to use the straight nozzle for it because I knew that the angled nozzle wasn't going to work, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, see, that's something I didn't even know to even think of because you know that machine better than I do. And now that you explain it to me, I can sit there and go, okay, he's thought about all of these different contingents. And then he said something that actually made me laugh. He goes, I'm the laziest MFer out there. I'm going to find the quickest, easiest way to do anything. And I'm going to do that. And it was another like paradigm shift for me. And I was like, huh. Yeah, that's you. Okay. And so when he does things, I also, because I'm an overthinker. So I'm sitting there going, well, why is he doing this? Why is he doing X, Y, or Z? I need to kind of pull back and be like, maybe he's already thought about this and thought about the laziest way to do it. And I don't need to think about it anymore. But I did say to him, I was like, look, we proved that you were right in this whole thing. I still appreciate that you gave me 5 to 10 seconds to kind of test my theory out. It made me feel good. And even though that you were right and I was wrong, that's another hard thing too. I was wrong and I admitted it to him. I just appreciated him letting me figure it out on my own too. And so I was like, look, I'm getting there with the trust thing. Like I said, I was like 98% there. I wanted to figure something out real quick. But this will make it easier for me next time. He was like, okay. And just left it at that.
I love that. That is such a really good example, and you explained it so, so well. And it really, now I'm gonna move us into our last little section here and wrap us up because girl, you nailed it every single time. You're giving
I'm trying. Star student here.
Absolutely. But the last question I have for you is what would you tell a woman who's considering working with me but is hesitant? Okay. So what would you say to her if she was on the fence, if she was like, I don't know, what would you say?
The first question I would ask is, do you want your relationship to work? Just plain and simple. Do you want this relationship to work? Depending on that answer, I mean, if she's already at that giving up point, then there's not really a whole bunch you could do, right? But if she's sitting there and she's just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I love him, but there's these and all. That's telling me she still wants it. And so what I would say at that point would be is what is your relationship worth to you? You know, is it worth the financial commitment? Is it worth putting in that effort? Is it worth the weekly one-on-ones and the team calls and all that sort of stuff? Is it worth taking that inner look at yourself and being willing to change those things that maybe you don't want to admit? Is your relationship worth it? Or are you just done? And for me, the answer was, I want my relationship to work. I am willing to do what I need to do. And so anyone who's on the fence, just the initial question is, do you want it to work? And as long as the answer is, if it's still waffling or it's on the yes, I want it to work, then this is something that you need to do. Especially if they're like me, where they keep finding themselves stuck in the same situation over and over again, and they don't like being in that situation, and they want to try something different to get themselves out of it, but they don't know what that other option is. Just having somebody else's perspective can help, but someone who actually knows about what they're talking about is even better. Because I mean, you can go and talk to your girlfriends, and they're gonna be like, he's such a whatever, and you should just leave him, or like, I don't know why you keep putting up with that, and like that's just all that negative stuff in your head, right? But if you want it to work, you have to surround yourself with people who are going to give you all the positive things back too. One of the things that you pushed upon me too is that like you can't treat others well if you don't feel well yourself. So getting my hair done, getting my nails done, and all that sort of stuff, right? And I even went back to my mom and I was like, I've been working with this girl, and she was telling me how I have to take care of myself first. And my mom, who's a very like a black and white kind of woman, she was just like, absolutely. And like I never thought I would have that kind of reaction from her. And she was like, you guys need to go out on date night more often too. I'm like, well, then you need to be the babysitter for her. But it's like I never thought about it like that. And so having those other things that cut into it is like taking time for yourself and the nutrition aspect of it and all that. Like there's so many different things that go into it that when you're just looking at your relationship from an outside view or whatever, you're not looking at all of those little details, and you need those details in order to actually fix the root problem. So fix the problem, not the symptoms. I'm trying to fix the problem.
Yes, babe. Yes. That's so good. Well, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
this. And I very much appreciate you giving this glowing review. I'm very excited to continue to work with you. And I
Well,
know
thank you
that,
for putting up with my crazy too.
oh my God, babe, you're nothing. This is nothing. You know, I got you.
I feel like I am, so.
So I'm so excited for this to help other women in situations just like yours. You have literally just nailed it to a T. So thank you.